On most cases, anybody who wants to start in the fashion industry has to start with internships, and usually those internships will be unpaid. And unpaid internships are a problem in many, many industries, but we will focus on fashion just because that's what we know. So, unpaid internships are supposed to go, according to the law, the way that a classroom setting would, where there is a trainer and a trainee, and the trainee is the intern, and the trainer is the employer. And I'm only using employer as a term because there's no real other word to replace it, but it shouldn't be an employee-employer relationship at all. It should be a mentor-mentee relationship. And the law declares that training is for the benefit of the intern only. However, we know that the reality is different, where the benefit is usually for the employer, where you go and you run errands, you do day-to-day tasks, and we see this a lot in media as well when it's translated into the fashion industry and how we see fashion interns portrayed. And it's usually someone doing the dirty daily work that nobody wants to do. And that goes into other places within the law that is worth mentioning, including the intern does not displace regular employees, and the intern does not perform routine work of the business on a regular basis. So that includes busy work, that includes running, that includes errands and filing. And we find that, like, for instance, I've been an intern since 2014 when I started my education back in Los Angeles. My day-to-day work in my first internship, which was at a style house, included opening and closing. And we would do things like mopping the floors, making ice, putting clothes back on their racks. And those are not tasks that we learned. They're work that would replace that of an employee that was tasked to upkeep the style house. Most employers will use the internship programs to exploit their labor work for free. I decided to run a questionnaire on Instagram, and I asked people what they thought about unpaid internships. Most of the responses were just flat out no. Like, don't put me through that. Don't get me to even start thinking about this because I've been there, I've done that, and I hate it. But some responses thought, it's okay for freshmen and sophomores in college to go through internships, and something that we see on a regular basis would make you think that that's normal. So I understand why they would think that freshmen and sophomores in college should put themselves in those situations where they are interning without pay. And some thought it was positive. Some said if it's worth it, if it's for the industry that you want to be in, if it's in a company that you want to work for, then go for it. And I see that as almost selling yourself, because throughout all of my experiences, I've interned for showrooms, I've interned for style houses, I've interned in PR, I've interned in planning departments. Everyone will make you do things that are not within this legal term unless you stay on top of it. I came across an article that argued that these unpaid internships cause a lack of diversity within our industry. I came across an article that argued that the industry is funded by the parents of intelligent young women, and that 86% of internships in the arts are unpaid. And for people who are trying to break into the fashion industry, they need to have these unpaid internships in order to fill out their resume, in order to build connections. But unfortunately, this costs them money. And for an average person going to college and taking an unpaid internship, it adds an extra cost of £1,100. And this was a study that was done in London because of their fashion industry. And being in New York City, it's not much different. If anything, we might even be paying more in order to do these unpaid internships while we're going to school. And this causes a natural segregation in the industry because the people who cannot afford it are usually the people of lower class families. And we see that a lot with our ethnic groups. And those people who are not able to take unpaid internships in order to break into the industry have a much harder time finding their way through it. And we find that it's mostly white individuals, white females, who end up in these positions and who are able to grow at a much faster and much more high pace rate